Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to Marshall County High School's AP Government Town Hall meeting. We are so thankful for all of you here tonight. A special thank you to our Marshall County media team, MediaCom for being here, and Mr. Carrick for helping us get this all sorted out. Also, a very special thank you to our politicians who are here with us tonight. This would not be happening without them here. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with us.
All right. Well, we're not going to keep everyone waiting, so we're going to jump into the thick of it. We've got Caitlin over there with a microphone, and so whenever we ask a question, she will hand it to you and help pass it between the two tables so you don't have to get out of your chair. And we're going to start off. We had the students in the class go around and ask students at the school and people in the community, their parents and whatnot, questions so that we could have some prepared for you, and we will also be accepting questions from the audience. If you have a question, just write it down, wave it in the air, and one of our students will pick it up and bring it up here to the table to be asked. So we're going to start off with a question for Judge Spraggs. And we're going to ask, during the holiday season especially, traffic can be an issue near Mike Miller Park, and we were wondering if it is possible to add a turning lane to go into the park.
That would be something we need to, first of all, discuss as a court, and would definitely have to be discussed with the state. We did put a turning lane in at Southwest 1. Those are very expensive. There is an issue there that we need to address, as we've all seen, and it's something we will be looking into to see what we can do to remedy that. I know the state has some plans, and I have not spoke with them recently, to do some modifications on down that direction. Hopefully that'll be something that's their idea and they'll pay for it and we can all benefit from it. But yes, it does need to be looked into, and the more that we get there, the more traffic congestion we're going to have. It's you know, I hate to say it's a good problem to have, but I am glad to see the park doing so well.
Thank you. And then if any of you others have something to add, if you'd like to.
Since the judge passed that to the state, I'll respond to that. There was like $60 million awarded to Marshall County in road funds in the last budget, and the state goes through a process, the transportation on road projects, and before each session we'll usually meet with the district engineer and we'll meet with local officials to try to get what their priorities are as far as road fund. And then there's a scoring process that the state goes through to kind of take the politics out of these projects. And it has to do with safety, it has to do with economic development, it has to do with the traffic on a particular road. And then funds are awarded based on those scores. And over this past session, there was an excess of funds, money that had come down from the federal government, and that's where all the extra came from. But that's just to kind of let you know what the process is. And Marshall County got more than our share during the last budget with that $60 million. And that was a pretty significant amount compared to some of the other counties across the state.
Thank you. All right, moving on, we have a question for Representative Freeland. What are your top priorities for our public school system in the coming year?
Top priorities for our public school systems. Well, thanks for having this first of all. I work well with our superintendents here, and our superintendent here in Marshall County, Dr. Miracle. I did with Trent as well, and also in Lyon County, Russ Tilford. And I really lean on our schools, our school board, our principals to make those decisions on what their needs are. And Representative Carroll and I and everyone else, we try to do what we can to meet those needs. I'm thinking like the tornado relief package we passed at the first of session last year. The schools had done such a wonderful job of working in the centers and helping people, but they weren't sure if they would be able to be paid for that. So we put in legislation in the relief bill for them to be able to be paid for that week, and it's several days that they were out. But they and the staff that were helping as well, so they could get paid. Now, also the school safety bill that from 2019, I mean, that was probably a model legislation for the entire country. That one was extremely popular, and there's just several. But personally, priorities, I mean, I just want to have good schools, but I don't have any selfish priorities for myself. But I want to be a good representative for our school systems and work well with them. They're the ones that are in the schools and know best, I think.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to Mr. Darnell. And we're asking, in regards to crime, what do you see our greatest concerns to be in the county?
Well, I think I'm not going to be sharing any big secrets with anybody here when I say that our biggest problem, along with every other county and community in Kentucky, is the drug epidemic, particularly with methamphetamine and opioids, and then the new danger that unfortunately has creeped its way into our county here lately is fentanyl. And fentanyl, if you haven't heard, is maybe the most dangerous drug that I've ever seen since I've been here. Just a little bit can kill a person, and it's almost impossible to detect where it is and what it is. There may be a pill that looks like a Xanax or a Lortab that somebody is accustomed to taking, and it could have a little bit of fentanyl in it without anybody knowing down the line, and it could end up in a death or a coma. And obviously that's devastating not only to the family but the whole community. That's a loss, and it's oftentimes a young person that suffers the consequences of that. We've seen that way too often here. So that is without question the biggest issue that we face as far as criminal activity goes. And like I've said before, it's not just drug crimes. You have a person who's addicted, that person is in dire need of the next fix, and they're willing to do things that they wouldn't normally do to get the money and the means to try to get that next fix that they are addicted to. So that leads to burglaries, it leads to robberies, it leads to theft, it leads to fraud. It can lead to all sorts of other crimes. So I've often said this, and I don't know, it's kind of an anecdotal, but and I've heard Judge Telly say this too, that if we could snap our fingers and do away with alcohol and drug addiction, then we could probably eliminate most of the jails in the state and cut down on the times. We could probably have criminal court one day every 2 months if that happened. So that would be, without question, is our biggest concern.
Thank you.
All right, our next question is for Mr. Freeland. What are your top priorities for our public schools? Oh my gosh. I'm on the wrong page. All right, let me retry that. Our next question is for Mr. Barrett. What is your top priority as a commissioner?
Well, my top priority is to serve the people of Marshall County. I mean, I'm going to be working for them, so that is the top priority. We've got to figure out what is best for Marshall County, what we need to do, nothing's off the table. We're coming in here with a new court. We'll look at everything, whatever needs to be done for the betterment of the county. That is what I'm for. So that is what I think it is.
All right, our next question is for Mr. Telly. In regards to crime, what do you see our greatest concerns to be?
I agree with Mr. Darnold, but obviously, particularly drugs, prescription drugs, legal drugs, everything from marijuana to meth, wreak havoc on our communities around the country. And these are not simple questions or problems to be dealt with. I wish I could sit here and tell you that your court system, your prosecutors, your law enforcement is going to handle this problem and make it go away. I can't do that. This is a societal problem, and it starts with our children, and it goes all the way through our seniors. and it's not going to be dealt with in any easy way. The traditional view from some quarters and that has been challenged is, well, lock them up, send them to jail, get them off the streets. That hasn't worked. The current trend seems to be almost the opposite. Don't lock them up. Don't give them consequences. We'll get them in treatment. We'll solve the problems by being nice, if you will. And rehab treatment is not being nice, but you can't lock them up, and there are not enough beds. There's not enough money out there to send everybody to treatment. We're going to have to deal with this one person at a home at a time. Moms and dads, friends and neighbors, and to the young people in this room, you have more keys for solving this problem than anybody else, because your friends, your classmates, your peers, people that look up to you are going to get caught up in this. And you can encourage them and help them along and be right there with them, or you can have the courage to stand up and say, there's nothing that you're going to make better in your life by going down that road. Many years ago, I met a doctor. His name was Dr. Burkitt. He from England. He had been a missionary in Africa. And he said, America's an interesting country. If a guy is walking out through the forest and falls off the side of a cliff, grabs hold of a root, and they bring all these resources in to rescue him, the rescuers are heroes. They'll be on the nightly news for weeks. They'll give them dinners, celebrate them, whatever. If somebody puts a fence up to keep them from falling off the side of the cliff, every person that comes up to the fence will say, I wonder what SOB put the fence up and blocked my view. And so bottom line is, I could go on for a long time, but this is a problem that's going to have to be solved by the community with the help of the court system, prosecutors, and law enforcement.
Thank you. Our next question is for Judge Moore. What plans or ideas do you have in order to steer the court in a better direction?
Well, I spoke about this as I was campaigning quite often. I think the number one thing that needs to change in regard to the circuit court in the 42nd Judicial District is remaining impartial. I don't believe as a circuit court judge myself or anybody else should begin boards, appoint family members to those boards. That's not the direction that the court needs to go in. Also, I believe it's important to remain transparent. We've had some very high-profile cases come through, and I believe the community as a whole deserves to know what's occurring in the court system. And unfortunately, I think that hasn't happened. I think that a lot of us have been kind of left in the dark. And so I would like to be more transparent as a circuit court judge. Also, as Judge Telly and Mr. Darnold discussed the drug problem, I believe if we considered a more individualized approach and started utilizing social workers that are available in the court system, especially those that are available that work for the public defender system, they know those inmates. They know the issues they have, and they will be able to choose a program that fits each individual defendant. And so my plan is to start utilizing those social workers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question is for Mr. Farley, and it is, compared to Calvert, Benton seems to be falling behind. We have limited sidewalks, older parts, fewer community and county drawing activities. How do you plan to address this?
Well, you're talking about two different cities, two different tax bases, and so there are some challenges there that we face at Benton. We're developing an industrial park that has been annexed into the city limits. Hopefully, as that industrial park is filled, that'll generate more tax dollars. I know we received a grant this year, talking about sidewalks, building sidewalks from, I believe, the 8th Street area down towards 5th Street. And of course, 5th Street where Walmart and everything is. We've got plans, we're looking at doing sidewalks I know out Mayfield Highway is another area where I think they're needed. So we have plans, we've actually, put down things that we may not be planning to do this year, but we know they're out there and we need to take care of them. But as far as being able to catch up, I guess, with Calvert City, it might be a tall order right now, but I think Southwest One will, as it develops, other tenants come in, then if tax money increases, then we're able to spend it right here in the community, and I think that's important.
Thank you. Our next question is for Mr. McGuire, and it is, how will you bring respect and cooperation back to our government and community and represent all citizens and not just those of your party?
And that's what we were missing the last 4 years, in my humble opinion. Basically, there will be 4 people on this fiscal court. Each one, other than Monty, is sitting in a different position. Judge Braggs was a commissioner last time. Myself and Marty will be brand new coming in. And treat each other with love, treat each other with respect, even in our disagreements. There's nothing wrong with Marty having a different idea than I have on how to do something. You bring it up, you discuss it, you vote on it, and then you go to lunch. I'm still going to love them at the end of the day. We've got what we think is the county's best interests at heart. We'll express those ideas. And there may be times that I vote something different than I would have voted if I was voting as Eddie McGuire, because I do represent those in the 1st District. They may want something different than I personally want about something. So just that disagreement and love and respect will go a long way in getting us off WPSD every week. So.
Thank you. And this next question is for whoever feels like biting the bullet and answering it, so you can fight over the microphone. And it is, are there any plans for a traffic light at the entrance and exit of the high school? It is very dangerous even for experienced drivers.
We have the money here. It's Chris and Danny, so. No, but that's what it will come down to. Keep in mind that Highway 68 is on the same road as Miller Park, and so that is a state highway. And I think it was Danny that touched on it a little bit. There are all kinds of concerns when you start talking about when you can put in a traffic light, when you can put in a speed bump, when you can put in a turning lane. The state has all these regs and rules and regulations on traffic devices, when they can go in, what you need to have those installed. And then it obviously is a budget issue. Even if you can put something in, is there money enough to do it? So that's what that would entail.
Thank you.
I was trying to look through my text to find a conversation that I had with the district highway engineer, Kyle Pope. I know there have been a couple bus drivers that had contacted me about a light over there, and I know that they were doing a feasibility study on that, so the state is aware of it, and I don't know if the numbers or what the issue was with that on why that hasn't happened, but whoever asked that question, if you will come to me afterwards, I'll check with Kyle and see if I can get an update on that.
All right, this is also an open-ended question. How might we prioritize cleanup from the tornado? There seems to be still so much to do. For example, the light poles next to Walmart, they are still down. Also, how might we help individuals on cleanup?
So as of October 31st, there was still about $61.2 million in the West Kentucky Safe Fund, and those are funds that were set aside for tornado relief. So there's $108 million left, and this is to cover replacement or renovation of damaged public buildings, reimbursement for services, personnel, and equipment provided during the emergency response, funding to local governments and publicly owned utilities for replacement and repair of publicly owned buildings, and assistance to local governments for planning efforts to rebuild and recover. So there are state dollars available, and we had our caucus retreat in northern Kentucky last week, and there's a monthly report that comes in on those funds. So at this point, I think it's really, and I'm going to give the ball back, it's really up to the local governments to put together their request to send to the state entity that oversees these funds and to justify the expenditures to do that. I know we had gotten into a lot of issues with the local group that kind of coordinates the request right now, and folks that were underinsured during the tornado, and I know there's some controversy related to that. You had folks that had insurance that were out money, and then folks that did not have insurance that got new homes. So, but I think there was just a concerted effort to try to help everyone, and that's why that we appropriated so much money to make sure that there were funds available for that. The last time I checked on the funds being used for underinsured homeowners, there had not been a decision made on that, and that was through the executive branch, the entity that oversees the funds that are coming in. So I would encourage, if there are things that you all see that need to be repaired or removed, that you get in touch with your local officials. Sorry, guys. And they can prepare a list, and hopefully, you know, if there's funding that is needed to take care of that issue, that can happen. And if it's a state issue that's along the Parkway there, I-69, then that's something we need to get in touch with Kyle Pote about, so they can get that taken care of through the Department of Transportation. No, that's allocated specifically for tornado relief. There was a West Kentucky Safe Fund established and an East Kentucky Safe Fund established to deal with the flooding that occurred there, but that's separate. I mean, there is funds available for economic development. There were dollars allocated, federal dollars that came down for COVID relief funds, ARPA, all of that you know, that could be used for economic development. There are just different pots in different places.
All right, our next question is for Mr. Spraggs. As a high school student, I have no desire to come back to this county after college because there's nothing for me here. You need us to come back. We see this in the lack of economic growth and a lack of incentives to return. What is your plan, if there is one, in place to prevent brain drain?
Well, one thing we're going to do going forward is work together with our local and state officials, and that's been lacking for the last, well, since I've been in office anyway, and a few years prior to that. So we have to all work together for common goals, and I know where you're coming from on that. I'm not sure if my daughter will come back or not. She's in her first year of law school and liking it pretty good in Lexington. So we have to create jobs here that are attractive, and jobs that you know, our graduates are interested in. I mean, you can have jobs, and then, you know, you can have jobs that will attract the young people like yourself. So we need to look at a variety of things. We do have the industrial park, and you know, we're working on developing that. I've had a couple businesses already reach out to me wanting to talk the first of the year. They're waiting to see what happened with this election, and very excited about the opportunities we're going to have. Very excited about the opportunity to work even more directly with Danny and Chris. One of the many things, these dangerous bridges going out 408, they've worked to get those replaced, and there's a whole lot going on, and I'm very excited about the future that we're going to have. I'm very excited about the court that I'm going to be able to work with and focus on positive things and get rid of the negativity. Negativity is not going to draw any businesses in here. And we plan on shedding that negative light we've had for the past few years and moving forward in a positive direction that'll make people want to move here, live here, and work here.
I don't like to talk until I start talking. I'm going to push back on that question a little bit. You're not going to find a better place in this state, in most of this country, to live than where we are right now. And some of you students, I get it, but I think what you're going to find out when you get out in the world and you start having a family and you get away and maybe you're in a big city, I think you're going to understand what you're missing. And we see a lot of kids that do that, and they end up coming back home. And I think you have to look not just at Marshall County, but you have to look at the region and what this region has to offer with all the employment opportunities in Calvert City and engineering. You've got USEC. At some point, there's going to be some nuclear industry that comes into our area, whether that be a nuclear reactor or a laser enrichment plant. So there are opportunities. We have the lakes. You can't ask for a better place to live. One thing that we have worked on in the legislature is because of the changing environment and so many people working remotely these days, we look to offer packages for young people to move in to the Commonwealth and provide some incentives for them to come and work remotely. My son left a job as an with an IT company. He's working from home now, making about $30,000 more a year than he was making before. So there are those opportunities that deal with the brain drain that's always talked about, but I'm having to rethink this completely, and it's not always all about bringing physical businesses to the state. A lot of companies, they just don't operate that way anymore. It's remote. So I think we have to rethink that, and if you're young, I think someday as you get older, you're going to understand what you're leaving and what this area has to offer.
All right. Willard.
Well, you kind of stole my thunder. You beat me to it, but I was going to say this county in this area, there's a delicate balance. You start bringing certain things in, you're going to lose certain things. In this area, of course, I'm born and bred Marshall County. This is my home. I love visit places, but no place I'd rather live. And I can't say when I was young that I didn't think that way, but I really did. I wanted to be a farmer all my life, so other than out west, this is my place. But it's a delicate balance. You've got to figure out what you can and what you can't do. You don't want to lose the hometown community feel that we have here. So it's like you said, it's a delicate balance. But
All right, our next question is for Mr. Carroll. What are you doing to grow Marshall County?
It has been difficult the last few years. When conversations come up about Marshall County, most of those conversations have to do with all the controversy that's taken place within the fiscal court. When you get word that people from New York watch the fiscal court meeting for the entertainment value of it, that's embarrassing to this county. And I think where we have to start with getting Marshall County back on track starts in the fiscal court. And it starts with cooperation, it starts with mutual respect, it starts with everybody being who Marshall County is, what we've always been. And I think that's coming back with this fiscal court that's seated right now, and I think there's going to be a good relationship between the court and Chris and I and other legislators in this region. And I think that we have to think more regionally. Just came from northern Kentucky, and those counties up in northern Kentucky around Cincinnati, Newport, Covington, they work together as a region, and they're booming up there. We don't do that so much here, and you know, in some areas we do. Paducah has a tendency to kind of want to fend for themselves, and we've got to start working more together and creating opportunities as a region, because the more we do that, the more we share resources, the better we're going to be able to draw business and industry into this area. I think the first thing that Marshall County has to do is to define the identity of this county. What do you want this county to be? What type of businesses do you want to have in this county? And then you go out and recruit those businesses. And I think that's where we are, and I think we have to really look at our assets with the lake and building on that and building the economy back on that in tourism, because that's something we've got that not a lot of counties have with the lakes area. And you won't find a finer lakes area anywhere. And we have to build on that and build on that resource. The Southwest One Park, there's a lot of opportunities there to bring in technology-based companies that will help with this brain drain that our students are always talking about. So my job, Chris's job, is to make sure that there are connections with the funds that are available to try to help get dollars in. The last budget, we got a lot of projects in that help Marshall County, money for the vocational school out at the high school and other things. So it's important for us to work together, for the local government to decide what the priorities are and what their needs are, and then for Chris and I to be a resource to them, to connect them with the folks in Frankfort and the funds, and to be an advocate for them to get those projects done, and then to fight for budget dollars when we do the general fund budget.
Our next question will be for Judge Tully. By the time an alleged criminal is standing in front of you, it is almost too late. What are you doing to work with other community leaders to help someone never get to this point?
A very good question, and it, I think, goes back to the theme I was mentioning earlier, is that it is a community effort. With our juvenile court, we work very closely with the school. We have a representative from the board that attends each session. We interact, or try to interact with the school, with the cabinet, with the local government resources. One of the areas that we have worked on over the years is having community entities or members, individuals who would be willing to serve as mentors, who would provide good role models for young people that often do not have a positive role model in the home or in their lives. Other, obviously, teachers fill that role to some extent, but there are many challenges for many, particularly the young people in the community. And when you get to a certain point, it is very difficult to pull back to deal with being overwhelmed. COVID really turned a lot of things upside down. I realized about 3 months ago a lot of the programs, connections that we had developed, I will be starting my 21st year in January, are gone now. They literally are just gone. And so I would invite you to stand up. Let us know where you see needs, if you're willing to get involved. And in the line of what was being said, this is an incredibly giving community. There are so many different aspects of people that get involved to help people out. So many, in fact, that sometimes we don't even know they're there. Everybody assumes that everybody knows that they're trying to help people and what their program's for, and there may be somebody 2 miles down the road that never heard of them before. But it is something we face all the time as judges, and obviously there's been a lot of publicity lately. It's limited to what we can do. We can't fundraise, we can't, we have to be very circumspect about how we elicit support, but it is certainly an area that we're welcome help on.
Thank you. The next question is for Mr. Farley. Many homes/properties within the city limits are in dire need of repair plus upkeep, not only from the aesthetics but safety as well. Are there any ordinances about upkeep, and if there are, when and how are they enforced?
Yeah, we do have ordinances, and we've actually passed some I guess, beefed up some of our current ordinances for nuisance properties, as you might call them, where they either don't appear in good condition or they're a safety hazard. And we have at least one person that goes around Benton looking for something that may fit that description. And if they see something, they address it. We're also open to, if anyone has a property of mine that they don't think looks unsafe, call City Hall and let us know, because everyone, if it's in your neighborhood or on your street, you see it every day. It's on top of your mind. So if you see something that we've missed, please let us know, because we have the means to take care of it. We beefed up the fines to make, maybe incentivize the people to take care of it quicker. Because we want a nice-looking community and a nice-looking city. We got so much positive, going on that, we don't want little things like that dragging us down.
Thank you. This next question is more open-ended, so anyone can answer. Does the initiative for being a work-ready community still exist, and what might this look like for our businesses? Just one of you, please.
And this is out of my bailiwick. It has nothing to do with being a judge, so I'm going to be very careful here. But again, I deal with a lot of young people that are maybe school dropouts, that do not have employment experience. I routinely will ask young people, why do you think an employer wants to give you a job? Do you know what the number one answer to that question is? To give me money. Not me, but to give them money. Is that they believe that the purpose of a job is for them to get money. I fear realizing that no employer wants to hire anybody that they don't have to hire. And if they do want to hire somebody, they have a specific purpose that they need taken care of. And so again, training that actually affects the individual, talking about something that maybe keeps them from standing in front of the district court or the circuit court, is giving them hope, giving them something to aspire to and the tools to do it. That starts with the school. That starts with being able to read, write, to show up for school. And again, this is not something that the judge can do, that law enforcement can do. This is something that starts with each parent, with each guardian, grandparent, and uncle, encouraging, setting the example, helping them. And work ready. I have friends that are contractors, employers. They can't find workers. They can't find workers that can pass drug screens. And marijuana is a whole different issue there. They can't pass drug screens. They won't show up. They'll hire them. They won't show up. And again, it's partly an attitude, but we really have to back up and say, what's creating this attitude and what can we do to change it? And no amount of money out of Washington or Frankfurt is going to change that. It is something that we're going to have to own on our own and take responsibility for. And so...
Thank you.
All right, our next question is for Judge Moore. What is your top priority?
Well, like I said, the number one priority at this point is to remain impartial, to make sure that I don't have any type of preconceived, notions, etc., in regard to a case that comes before me. And also to remain impartial, that way the community has the trust in the court system. second thing would be obviously the drug situation. Again, I believe that we need a more individualized approach. I believe that we can't just send every defendant that has a drug problem to one program. I was a state defense attorney for 15 years with the state, and I dealt with all types of different cases. And what would help one person won't help another person. Oftentimes, defendant they need a religious aspect to their treatment. Others need more of a mental health aspect to their treatment. And so we need to start looking at the defendants that are coming through the court system as individuals. And we need to try to pinpoint the program that is best for them. And I do believe we would be successful if we focus on that. So.
Thank you. Our next question is for Mr. McGuire. Are there any new prospects which will bring new jobs?
Are there any new prospects?
Yes.
Is that what it says? Don't really know what that would bring new jobs, but we have, I mean, you have, Southwest One is what our big focus has been over the past 4 years. We have, in a lot of our ARPA funds, which came from the federal government, have been earmarked, at least by the last fiscal court, for water projects. But when you talk about growth from an economic standpoint, during the campaign, I kind of talked about a rebranding. You know, and nothing is wrong with Southwest One, don't get me wrong. That's an important facility. That's an important place that we need to grow. But when your entire eastern border is the lakes, you know, there needs to be a concentrated effort on branding for tourism. You know, we've got, you know, Aurora is an untapped resource when it comes to tourism dollars. There's plenty of land out there that can be developed. You know, and along with that comes jobs, comes population increase. You know, you talk about brain drain as well. You know, right now you may have 11 attorneys in Marshall County that service the county. Well, if you have a 10 or 15% increase in population, then that creates those more jobs. That creates that need for more of your professional services, that people can come in and do the things that they love in their hometown. I think that may be the biggest frustration is folks have a career paths that they've chosen and they just can't, they feel like they can't do them here. So, you know, we got a long way to go. We're not going to do that in the first 4 years. You know, Aurora's not going to be the new Branson by 2026 when we're all running again. But the biggest thing is when a business looks at Marshall County and they look at the way that they're structured from a government standpoint, do they see cooperation with other counties? Do they see cooperation with state officials and even federal officials? And that's going to go a long way with at least having them look at us longer. You may not win every time, but they're going to glance right past you when they see turmoil and conflict. Yeah, you're probably right. I should have said doctors. I should have said doctors.
Thank you. Our next question is for Mr. Barrett. Because you are the newest member to a county position, how do you plan on preparing for better understanding issues the fiscal court has been addressing for some time?
Read it to me one more time.
Because you are the newest member to a county position, how do you plan on preparing for better understanding issues the fiscal court has been addressing for some time?
I want to talk to the people that are concerned about the issues. It's on the street level. That's open door. Call me anytime. I want to serve y'all. I want y'all to let me know what you want. Well, that's what we got to do. We got to work together. And like I said, the goal is to serve the people of Marshall County, because y'all are paying our salary, y'all elect us, and when we do something wrong, let us know. So y'all let us know. So that's what we're here for. So this is my final answer.
and I may not be a new elected official, but this position is going to be completely different than being a sheriff. You know, I've been a cop my whole life, but there'll be a large learning curve. We're getting ready to go to Louisville tomorrow for newly elected officials training. There's a lot of things to learn. Learned a lot sitting at the fiscal court meetings, but there's still a lot to learn. So being humble enough to ask for help is the biggest issue. I think you can overcome, or it could be a stumbling block for you. So I'm going to call folks. I'm going to lean on Monty and Kevin Spraggs and even Marty. You know, we'll probably be leaning on each other, wondering what to do sometimes. You know, we'll call on those folks to help us if you don't know. That's the biggest thing you can do as a leader is find someone. You know, if you're not an expert or versed in something, find that person who is and lean on them. You don't have to know everything to be a leader. So.
Well said.
Thank you.
Our next question is related to the drug issues that you have all mentioned, and it's, what about the mental health aspect of addiction? What is being done to help those in that aspect? Any of you can answer this one.
Like I alluded to earlier, I believe that if we would focus on the programs throughout the West Kentucky area, not just the programs that are here in Benton or in Callaway County, if we would broaden the horizon a bit and consider allowing the defendants that are going through our court system that have mental health disorders, that the only way that they can deal with that is to self-medicate. We need to broaden our horizons and send them to a program that has mental health staff. I think that that's not, unfortunately, being done to the degree that we should here in Marshall County and in Callaway County. And so that is one of the top things that I will consider is I will consider all programs that are available. And if that program is appropriate for that defendant, I will absolutely send them there.
Thank you. Our next question is for Judge Spraggs, and it is, since Marshall County has gone wet, how has the sale of alcohol benefited the county or harmed it?
Well, I'm going to pass this to former Sheriff McGuire here in just a second. He can give you more of the numbers on that. It has been used to provide additional officers on the roads, and you know, that's a primary benefit from that. And I think statistically, I know I had asked our County Attorney Darnell at one time if numbers had gone up or anything on alcohol-related crimes or DUIs or anything, and I don't think we've seen a increase to amount to anything in that, have we, Jason, still? So the additional law enforcement out there, because of the funding, you know, obviously helps offset that. From a tourism standpoint, you know, a lot of people that come in here from other areas, Illinois and Missouri and Tennessee and Michigan, we get people from all over the place. They're used to that, they expect that, and you know, it's something that is available when they're here visiting, or if they look, you know, if they're looking at moving here possibly. I've been in the real estate business 25 years and had people come down and visit, buy seasonal homes, and then end up moving here full time when they retire. So you know, from that standpoint, and I'll let Eddie speak a little bit if he will on.
Yeah, roughly it pays for approximately 20% of the entire Sheriff's Department salary, which is roughly close to $400,000 a year is what we usually budget, between $380 and $420. It just depends. But that's about what we bring in as a county on our ABC. Now you still got, Calvert City has their own ABC, the city of Benton has their own ABC, so you know, those collect separate fees. So I know it's a hot topic issue, but right now we don't have enough staffing, and if you took that money away at this point, you're going to lose a minimum of 3 officers, if not 4, because it does cost at least, by the time you talk equipment, retirement, insurance, it's around $100,000 an officer to put one on the road, and that would cripple the service if you took 3 of them out of the 15 that's on the road right now. If you took 3 of them away, that would really cripple the service that you could provide to your community.
I'll just let you in on a little secret. Marshall County has always been wet. It just became legal to sell it in 2015. We've always been a wet county. There's not a dry county in Kentucky or in the United States. What we have seen an increase in dramatically, if we could rewind about to when I started prosecuting as assistant county attorney in 03 or 04, somewhere around there, we used to have DUI days once a month, and 19 out of 20 DUIs would be alcohol related. We would get that oddball DUI that would come in. It would be marijuana or a drug DUI, and we would look at the officers, we would look at the defense attorneys and say, well, what are we supposed to do with this? And now it may be more, we may see more drug DUIs than we do alcohol DUIs. If anything, it's pretty close to even. And so the laws have had to really change, and I applaud the efforts of our 2 representatives that we have tonight. They've always been really receptive to county attorneys on our issues. And so the laws have had to catch up with society, with the availability of the street drugs and the prescription drugs. The laws have had to catch up on that. So that's what we've seen an increase in dramatically is the drug DUI. As far as increase in crime as a result of Marshall County going wet, I haven't personally seen it. Eddie, I don't think you have either. Now, there's maybe some hotbeds that didn't used to exist in certain spots of the counties where we've got some honky-tonks, for lack of a better word, that sometimes people get rowdy there and they may get an AI or an assault charge where they wouldn't if that wasn't a place to congregate, but that's just part of it. I mean, that doesn't account for a huge spike in crime.
Thank you. Our next question is for Mr. Freeland. When politicians work together and compromise, we all get closer to winning. How do you plan to do that?
I think we do that right now. I think Danny and I he would agree with me. It doesn't make much news. The news is not very interested when we'll spend a whole day in Frankfort and pass a handful of bills without any controversy. Everyone agrees. It's those, out of 200 bills that we may pass in a year, it's those 20 to 30 bills, a smaller percentage, that get all the attention, and it makes it look like we can't get along. Now, at times we can't get along, I have to admit that. But I think we are always willing to work together and cross the aisle, and we've got division even among our own caucuses. So sometimes it's the ability to work within your own caucus with members, and every one of them are good people. So it's just a difference of beliefs and ways that we think it would best work. But I think that working together already is happening. I personally, I've never asked anybody what their party affiliation is before I would work with them. I'm sure Danny has not either. And any of these men or women up here haven't. So I think it is happening. It's not very exciting and the news doesn't cover it, but I think on a national level it's probably the same way.
Thank you.
All right, our next question addresses all fiscal court members. What is the status of making our 911 call center a regional call center?
Okay. I have talked to a lot of counties. I talked to a lot of counties early on with this. Most of the other counties, I've even talked to Carlisle County, Ballard County, Livingston County. They have their own peace outs. They're not interested in joining us. McCracken County is in the process of doing an interlocal agreement with the city, doing their own deal. I see us kind of where we are. I think we can build on that. This communication system issue we've had for many years, this current court is going to deal with it. We're going to deal with it head on, and we're going to get a solution. And I'm tired of our first responders being in danger because they don't have adequate communication. I had a radio for a couple of weeks. I just wanted to see for myself if it was as bad as what I was hearing. Yep, it's as bad or worse. When a deputy and a state trooper are standing out at Cambridge Shores and the only communication they have with dispatch is a cell phone, that is not acceptable. Absolutely not acceptable. So we're going to focus on that. We're going to fix it.
If you want my honest opinion, I don't see regionalization happening at Marshall County within the next, I'll say, next 2 decades. I think which way we go with our infrastructure will have a difference on whether we even keep a PSAP in Marshall County. I didn't really say a lot of it as sheriff, but you know, you're going to really make it tough on a fiscal court if you go to the state police interlocal communication system, because then state police is going to pitch you a number that's $500,000 or $600,000 to run your dispatch for you at state police, when the budget right now, well, the budget that's in place that was set to go in was $1.9 million. You know, we're running on about 1.2 right now. You know, if they're going to come in and try to pitch you something for half price, you've paid to build the tower for them, basically. You've paid all this money to have these radios, and then they're going to say, now we can, you know, you've either had to borrow the money to do this, or, you know, you've had to cut everything short, other services short to make room for this. Now we can cut $600,000 off your budget because we can dispatch for you. So that was a big red flag that I saw, is, you know, you're talking about 10 people that work there. You know, they wouldn't have a job if we did that. Now that'll be a very difficult decision to make if we would have gone to that state police system. Will we go that way? We don't know yet. We're going to all get in the same room with all of our fire departments, EMS, rescue squad, sheriff, city police. We're all finally going to get in the same room with some respect and see what exactly we're missing. You know, I was the sheriff, so I've got an inside view of that. But, you know, Marty's probably not heard from the fire departments, or even Monty or Kevin. So we need to get in the same room, and what is it that we need? We need to get knowledgeable folks, professionals that we trust, that will tell us what we need, not just sell us something. You know, that's what we've been done the last few years. We've just been sold, and we've bought, turns out, when we shouldn't have bought. And there's certain things that we can't undo. However, we can get them a decent radio system without breaking the bank. We just got to put our heads down and do it.
Well, like Eddie said, I did hear some of the fire chiefs come to me and said that we definitely had a problem we needed to figure out. And like he said, we got to all get together. They're the ones that use them every day. They know what we need. So I want to hear all of them. I want to know when I said, well, go, there is nothing off the table. So whatever we've got to do that they need to make this thing happen, then that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to hear everybody and make the best informed decision we can for those people and for the people of Marshall County.
Some of you may or may not have been aware, we recently had a $400,000 grant we received that I voted against personally. The reason being that was going to cost us at the end of the day $4 million, and not willing to do that at this point. This court will sit down together and make a decision what direction we're going to head. But, you know, you might say, well, that's $400,000. Well, if it's going to cost us $4 million, then sorry, I'm not interested. But we are going to sit down, and we've got a lot of things to discuss, and the difference going forward and what we've dealt with the past few years. We want to bring everyone in and talk to them and hear what they have to say. Each agency has different needs and budgets to consider, and there's a happy medium there. You know, I've heard this. Well, one of our big problems is with the communication is the lack of repeaters, which are on towers. And, you know, I've heard this. Well, we can't put a repeater up till we have a generator there, and, you know, all these excuses. No, that's not true. We can do this in stages. We can put a tower up with a repeater, and we may not have the generator on it right then, but hey, guess what? The electricity's not out. We're way better off than what we are, and I've already talked to the fire chiefs. They're willing to take responsibility if we end up going that route and being assigned a tower. If we lose power or have a disaster, they'll make sure it's powered up. So a lot of these things that we've heard in the past just simply aren't true.
Our next question is for Mr. Farley. Due to the demand of the services and benefits they provide, is incorporating a YMCA to Marshall County on the table?
That's actually something that has not been explored. I don't even know what requirements there are to get a YMCA. I don't know that we would have the population base to do that. So that's something that's never even, you know, been on the table as far as I know. You know, we've got some great local gyms, you know, that people can join here at fairly affordable prices. A new one just opened up in Benton, and you know, we've got a lot of parks and trails and all just to go out, you know, to exercise, and just added some pickleball courts actually in Benton. But as far as the YMCA, do not. That's never been brought to us before, and nothing that I think is anywhere near close to happening as far as I know of.
Thank you. For Judge Moore, by the time an alleged criminal is standing in front of you, it is almost too late. What will you do to work with other community leaders to help someone never get to this point?
Well, I believe that it is important to, as a circuit court judge, to make sure that you understand all the resources that are available to you. So while I was campaigning, I was also touring facilities and trying to understand how those facilities worked, what they offered the community, etc. So in my role, as Judge Telly said, it is there's certain things we can do, there's certain things we can't. But the number one thing that I think I can do as circuit court judge is to understand the resources that are available to me and try to utilize those resources appropriately.
I was hoping I'd get that question too. I want to just respectfully disagree with a little bit of the premise of the question, in that by the time it gets to me or Judge Telly or Judge Moore, that it's too late. I really disagree with that. I mean, it depends on your mindset. You can look at that as your first day in court as the end, or you can look at it as a new beginning. And I think we all have to look at it as a new beginning. Obviously, circuit court is where the most serious offenses are. District court, I'm often in district court dealing one-on-one with the person across the table from me. Sometimes they don't have attorneys. Sometimes when they do have attorneys, I'll ask their attorney, can the three of us just sit down and talk? Not about what they did or have alleged to have done, but what's going on in their life. What if it's a young person, what are your plans going forward? What would you like to see? Where would you like to see yourself in 5 years, in 10 years? I talked to a guy today, a young man, 19 years old. He was in for some traffic offenses, not anything all that serious, but his mom was taking it very seriously, and he was there. She was there with him, and she was in the corner shaking her head at some of the things that I said. And I just asked him. I said, "What would you like to do to earn a living?" And so he just started talking to me, and he was really kind of a hands-on guy. And he didn't have his GED, and I said, "Okay, what if I give you an incentive to get your GED? If you get your GED, and if Judge Telly approves this, then we can basically wipe away your fines and court costs. You walk away without any financial consequences, but you put in the work to get your GED and open the doors for you." Now, that's just one anecdotal example, but like Judge Moore and Judge Telly have said, we have to take it as a one-on-one approach, and again, don't look at coming to court as the end, but a possible beginning. And we also can't, we can't give up on people, okay? We've been through that. Eddie knows this. Both judges know this. For example, somebody's up in circuit court on their first drug offense, and they have completed 6 months inpatient rehab. Obviously, everybody's happy that they have done that. Now, they're walking out of the courtroom, very, very proud of themselves, as they should be. Their family's happy. We've all got our fingers crossed, because the first time it usually doesn't stick, okay? You have to be able to recognize that this is a lifelong battle that these folks are facing. It's a daily struggle in and out for them. And so oftentimes it's 2 or 3 times in rehab before it sticks. And then usually the last resort that we go to is jail. And fortunately, through appropriations, there are programs in jail and or prison to help them too. But we really do look at, for the one who's addicted, we really do look at that as a last resort. But again, just going back to the question, I don't look at it as your day in court as the end, but a chance for you as an individual to have a new beginning.
Thank you.
One second. Got these all over the place. All right. The next question is for Judge Telly. Have you seen, and this question relates to what we were talking about earlier, have you seen an increase in alcohol-related crimes since it was legalized in our county?
To shadow what Mr. Darnold was saying, there have probably been a few more increases, particularly when alcohol sales first started, in alcohol intoxications, people just out on the street under the influence. For several years, it was pretty rare that we'd have somebody walking down Main Street in Benton under the influence. There was a bump, and when I say a bump, maybe 10 or 15 cases, and that's subsided. It's just not really any different now. A lot of the times that we have contact with folks under the influence, again, is results of domestics where law enforcement is called, or passengers in cars. It's not really been an uptick. And if I may just follow up on the drug-related mental health issue, I was in Nashville downtown 2 weeks ago, and every corner had 2 or 3 THC, or in some of the other states, marijuana booths, all the wonders of THC and marijuana and all the problems it's going to solve. It's legal in several states. It's legal in Illinois. May be legal in Kentucky. That's a question that the legislature is going to have to answer. The people is going to have to answer. It's been promoted. There is one of the most comprehensive studies of addictive behavior that's ever been done related to marijuana. And it shows about a 20 to 25% increase for young people that chronically use marijuana in serious mental illness. Depression, bipolar, 20 to 25%. So if I had 4 cups or 5 cups turned upside down up here with a ping pong ball, and you pick it up, the ping pong ball, and there's all the counterculture, everything is, THC's great, it's not going to create problems. It creates true, lasting problems that have to be dealt with in the court system, in families, in the economy. Every aspect of our lives are troubled by this. And I'm not trying to say, well, the court system, the criminal justice system can't solve it. Not that we're not going to be a part of that discussion, but it really has got to come from the foundation of our society.
Thank you. Our next question is on that note for Mr. Terrell and Mr. Freeland, and that is, now that medical marijuana is legal to be prescribed, will you move to legalize its production in Kentucky so the state can benefit from taxes?
Yeah, medical is not legal in Kentucky yet. And I know the executive order that the governor put out, really all that executive order does, there is a presumptive pardoning if you're charged with it for medical use. And how that's going to work out, the logistics of that, the logistics with law enforcement, yeah, I don't think the governor has the authority to do what he did to begin with, to basically tell people you can violate the law. He's not a legislator. He doesn't have that authority. So that's one aspect of it. There is a lot of discussion about medical marijuana. Through our caucus retreat last week, we had in-depth discussions about that. And will it come up in the Senate this year? I don't know. And it's a very difficult topic. And do I think in certain circumstances, end of life, certain cancers, is there legitimate use for it? Yes, there is. And but the problem is you see in a lot of states where it's legalized for medical use, you have doctors that prescribe it. If you got a headache, you get a card and you get marijuana. And I don't see the value of having a lot more people walking around our streets and driving cars, working, taking care of kids in the hospitals, wherever, that are stoned. What's the value of that? And as far as recreational use, I'll never vote for that. You all that know me know that I have 24 years in law enforcement, and I have seen the damage. And you can argue all day long whether or not it's a gateway drug. It is, and I'll argue that to my last breath. I've seen it too many times. So that's kind of where we are. And if we can come up with a bill that is restrictive enough, and if we're going to talk about medical cannabis, if it's going to be treated like a medicine, prescribed, controlled, not where you can grow your own, or not where you can go down to the neighbor and buy from them, it needs to be controlled like a medicine. And if we get language in a bill that supports that and it's restrictive enough to where it's the certain population with certain illnesses, I may be able to support that. But for every study that you see that says it is effective, you can find 5 more that says it's not. So it has become a counterculture issue, I think, in a lot of ways.
I agree with Danny, and I've heard from several law enforcement members who have said that the governor's executive order, it's really going to make things hard for them, because you're telling people that it's legalized, it's permitted now, when it's really not. So they will still be subjected to being arrested or any impact from the law. But like Danny said, I've voted for medical marijuana before, but it was in a pill form. It was really very specific what it was used for. I know the legalized marijuana, I think it's mostly the younger people that are using it right now. So that's never the intent of medical marijuana. It's meant to be for end-of-life situations, for people who are going through MS, different debilitating conditions, and I would certainly be open to that, and I have supported that, it's with my vote at least. But I do have some reservations. I want to make sure law enforcement is good. I want to make sure our federal laws are more in line with what the state's trying to do. I mean, you've got banks who can't do business with growers right now, or with dispensaries. They're not allowed to do business with them. And you've got transportation issues when you cross state lines to a state that doesn't allow it. I mean, that you're open to being federally prosecuted for that as it stands. So a lot of work needs to be done, and I think if the federal government could do something, that would certainly make it easier, but I don't know that they're ready to move on that.
One thing that I would add, we appropriated, I think it was $2 million last session, and it's either the University of Louisville or University of Kentucky that has started research on medical cannabis and looking at all the the various chemicals within marijuana. And you can't really just look at the entire plant. You have to look at each chemical that's in the plant and break that down and determine what value there is in each chemical. And so that was a step that we took, that we can get that research done. They reported a couple weeks ago in front of Judiciary Committee, I think it was. But so those are the steps that we have taken to kind of get a better grasp from a medical aspect. What is the real value, and where do we need to focus legislation?
So really quickly, I just want to make sure that nobody leaves the room misunderstood on this. Marijuana is as illegal today and will be on January 1, 2023 as it is now. Okay, so the governor's executive order does not in any way, shape, or form change the legality of marijuana, because the governor can't unilaterally do that. That has to come from the legislature. What the order purports to do, and the legality of it, as Senator Carroll said, is yet to be determined, is creates a possible defense for someone who has been charged. So there's nothing in the executive order that stops a law enforcement officer for charging someone with possession of marijuana. What I found probably most remarkable about the order itself was how short it is. It's a couple pages. It doesn't take you, a minute to read it, and then as a prosecutor and then law enforcement officers and judges, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, what now? What are we supposed to do on the ground? And with all due respect to those who wrote it, I'm not sure that they put a whole lot of thought into that, to be honest with you, because there's all kinds of questions that arise when you start talking about, okay, you've got a presumptive pardon. That's a new phrase to me, so we'll see how it goes.
Thank you. Our next question is actually for Mr. Carroll, or Darnell, so you can keep it. And this is also for Judge Tully and Judge Moore when you finish. And it is, you could easily be viewed as the bad guy due to simply doing your job. What is your plan to combat this view, and what are you doing to build a positive relationship with the community you work with?
Well, it's as a prosecutor, everybody knows, quote unquote, what side I'm on. Luckily for them, neither one of them are family court judges, because the family court judge, you're guaranteed to make at least one person mad, and possibly two when they walk out of the courtroom. Maybe that's not the case for our circuit and district judges, but going back to what I talked about earlier is I practice 90% of the time in district court. We have some cases up in circuit court. The prosecutor in circuit court is Dennis Faust. He's the Commonwealth's attorney. Of course, he's dealing with the more serious charges, the felonies, and everybody in circuit court has an attorney. There's very rare exceptions where somebody isn't represented by counsel. And so what Dennis Faust is doing, he's talking really only to that person's attorney, because that's what the rules say. In district court, I'm dealing with a lot of folks one-on-one that may not have an attorney. They may choose not to have an attorney. In fact, there's people in the county that, I've gotten to know over the years through district court. And, we're on a first name basis, and I'll say, so-and-so, what are you doing today? And say, do you want an attorney? He's like, no, I just want to come in and talk to you. And I take that kind of as a compliment, because they know that I'm not there to screw them over, that I'm going to shoot straight with them. I'm going to give them a fair offer. I'm going to hear their side, and we're going to try to work it out as best we can. So that's what I try to do in district court, and I really enjoy that aspect of it. I like the one-on-one, because I don't like to look at a person and just view them on what I read in the citation, because there's more to that person than what's in a one-page or two-page police report. There's a lot more going on in their lives. I like to know what is going on in their lives, and that's what I'll tell. If they are represented by an attorney, that's what I'll tell the attorney. It's like, the three of us, let's sit down and have a conversation. And I bring them in, and we don't talk about the alleged crime. We talk about what's going on in their life. How can we help you in any way? And that's sometimes that's a question that I'll ask them directly. What can I do today to help you to prevent this from happening again? And so that's what I try to do. That's what I've tried to do more and more and more as I've gotten older as a prosecutor. I guess the word maybe mature, better word is than older. But I think that's what we have to do, is look at everybody as a person that comes through there, and not just a stat or a case number.
I tell folks on a regular basis, I don't go to the office a single day with the goal of making anybody happy. If I wanted to make people happy, I would find an ice cream truck somewhere and sell ice cream. I have found the district court, I hope, to be a very good way to help people. That's the objective that I have. I know that's the objective of the prosecutors that we have in this community, Mr. Darnold, Mr. Fowles, pretty much everybody I've run into in the system. Now, does that mean everybody stands up and cheers and says, that's great, you're doing a great job? No. There are no simple issues. Each person is an individual, and we have to do the best we can, one person at a time. I grew up in a single parent home, or my dad passed away when I just turned 7. My mom taught my brother and I that respecting other people was the most important thing. And so I hope that anyone that's been in my court leaves feeling like that they were respected. If they cannot respect the decision of the court, they don't have to agree with it, and you can't make some people, nothing that's going to happen, they're going to be satisfied. But if they feel like they're not being respected from the time they walk in the door, you're doing more of a disservice to that individual and the community than is imaginable. And so, you know, my goal is to help folks. I hope that they leave the court system a little better than they found it. We see some of them quite often, and those are, in my view, failures. Those are the ones that we keep trying to find a different way. And you know, these are just folks, and there's not a single individual in the room or in the community that have not made some really bad mistakes in their life. And I'm at the top of the list. And we just happen to be dealing with people often when they are at a very low point, a very challenging point. And it's not just what brought them to court. It is what they live in. And we have, you know, many people have resources. They have family, faith. They have some finances. A lot of the people we deal with go from one crisis to the next. It's paying the light bill today. It's trying to find money to put a spare tire on, and then complicated maybe with drugs and alcohol. You know, it's not just snap your fingers and solve the problem. It is a very deeply rooted problem, and it's what we deal with every day. And we try to make it better.
In regard to the question, this was one of the things that I spoke about when I was running quite often, is treating others with courtesy and respect. That's one of the top things that I'll do, no matter who you are. If you're an attorney, if you're a public defender, they're attorneys as well. They deserve respect. Private attorneys deserve respect. Defendants that are coming into our courtroom deserve respect, as well as their family. Their families deserve respect. So at no time will I ever abuse my contempt power. I will always treat every single person as an individual that comes into that courtroom. They're there for a reason. They have a family member. They're dealing with a case. All of these people deserve respect, and that's how I will move forward. Also, I mentioned remaining impartial. I believe that comes into play as well in regard to the community knowing that the judge that they are going before will remain impartial and will not treat one person one way and another person another way. So I think that will also, you know, help the community have trust in the court system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question is for Mr. Carroll. When politicians work together and compromise, we all get closer to winning. How will you do that?
When I joined the Senate, the first person that I went to and found was a senator named Dennis Parrott from up around the Elizabethtown area. And the reason I went and found him is because he had sponsored a bill and got it passed that allowed my daughter, who has special needs, to get a degree or a diploma. And he and I became great friends. He's a Democrat. We started a PAGE program for special needs students within the state Senate. He has a daughter with special needs also. I have worked with Democrats in the House on bills related to 911 a few years ago. And those within the Senate, there are very few Democrats at this point, and there are opportunities that we work together on bills, and we have a lot of heated debate. And I think we all know that we're better when we work together, when we compromise. And the reality of it is it really good when you have all Democrats or all Republicans in the Senate or in the House? Really, it's not, because it kind of gets the balance off to a certain extent. I probably shouldn't say that as a Republican, since we have supermajority in both the House and the Senate, but that balance is important to maintain, and that balance still comes through because you have Republicans with different views on things, and there's still that discussion. But right now in the Commonwealth, I think within the biggest struggle that we have right now as far as working together is with the executive branch, specifically the governor. And this started in the early days of COVID, where we were completely shut out and all the decisions were made in a vacuum, and we had no input whatsoever. You all would call and want certain things to be done or had input. We had no communications at all, and it really hasn't gotten any better. Everything is at this point is just for a political nature, and it's like a contest to see who can announce something new within the state, and a lot of times with the governor, it's things he had nothing to do with. They're passing out checks every day, federal dollars or dollars appropriated from the state legislature, and that's just kind of how the relationship has gone, and we really don't get to talk about policy stuff, and it's difficult even working with the cabinets. They're afraid to really communicate with us and to be open and discuss things because they fear what the repercussions are going to be from the governor's office. And I'm just being honest with you. It's what I see every day, and it is difficult and it's hard to communicate. And I really wish we would get past that. I mean, I know within our caucus, and I don't know about the House, but there have been several efforts to reach out, and if we would work together more, we could get a whole lot more accomplished. But things just seem to be very political today between the executive and the legislative branch, and that's unfortunate. And I hope at some point that changes. I'm not a fan of the governor's in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but should he reach out and decide that he wants to change the way he operates and to work with the legislature, I'm there. I'm ready to get on board, but unfortunately I don't think we'll see that happen.
Yeah, we've had some rare occasions with some of the relief bills for East Kentucky and West Kentucky, but as Danny said, there's a lot of communication that's lacking between the two branches, and honestly, I can only see it from our side, but I do see our side really making the effort to improve that communication, and I don't see it from the executive branch. So I'm not saying it doesn't exist, I'm just telling you what I see. So I have to agree with what Danny said, and like Danny, I would certainly love to be able to work with anybody and everybody. So anything we can do to make our state better, our communities better, I'm certainly all on board.
Thank you. We have one last question. This is for Mr. Farley. When are the potholes and rough patches on Main Street in Benton going to be fixed?
Well, if I had $1 for every time I was asked that question, I would be a pretty wealthy man right now. In which streets was it? Main and Poplar? Was it that's what I was going to say. Somebody, unless something has happened, I don't think there's any potholes on Main and Poplar. Yeah, well, probably. But no, that was a long process, and that kind of goes to what we've done in Benton. We've spent a lot of money in the last 4 years that I've been on the council that you'll never see. A lot of it's underground. We had a lot of infrastructure issues. We had sewer lines and water lines going straight under Main and Poplar, where if there's a leak, they're digging up the street. And that's what created all the potholes that took us in the state, because it's a state highway, so we're only limited. We could get our utilities out of the way, then we had to wait on the state of Kentucky to fix the roads the way they saw fit. But all the utilities are out from underneath the road. We're replacing water lines that have been in the ground since the 40s. Like, again, millions of dollars being spent that you'll never know what happened. And yeah, I'm glad to answer that finally, saying they're fixed. There's none there.
All right, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I believe that's a wrap on our meeting. On behalf of the entire AP Government class, thank you so much for coming and attending this event. Yes, sir?
Well, I just want to say two things. First, I think I speak for all of us up here when we say thank you, Coach Carrick, and thank you for all your students for putting this on, and thank you for inviting us. It was a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to it ever since Clark texted me that day and said, can you come do it? So thank you to all you guys who put this on. And two, as far as the specific things that I talked about, and particularly Judge Moore and Judge Telly talked about, don't take our words for it. Call the clerk's office and find out when court's going to be happening, and come see for yourself the kinds of issues that we're facing here in Marshall County, and to get a first-hand view. I think you would find it, one, a little bit shocking, and two, very informative. So come out and see us. Court's open.